Hi everyone, welcome to the Biz Dev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I am David Baxter, and as you can see, things are a little different. We have an in-person guest. Her name is Patty. We're going to get to her in just a second. But I'm also joined, per usual, by Gary Voigt. I don't have a joke for you today, so how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad you're not going to pick on me.
Oh, I didn't say I wasn't going to pick on you. I just said not yet. It is New Year. Happy New Year to everyone. And it is 2023, which is still weird for me to say. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Patty. You'll see we look a little different because we moved everything around because the sun was coming through. And so, hey, live podcasting. It's not even live. Why am I saying that? I'm here with Patty Briguglio. Yes! All right. She is our guest today. I'm very excited to have our first live in-person guest. So tell me about you a little bit, Patty, and why you're here.
I have no idea why I'm here.
Perfect. Nailed it.
You asked me to come on, and I said, no. And then somehow you talked me into this. So my background...
It's my charm.
Yeah. My background is I've owned like 4 different businesses, which I've sold. I started out kind of like a marketing firm, and then when I moved to North Carolina, I kind of looked around and said, man, there's nobody doing public relations here. And public relations is really, really hard. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do nothing but public relations, and best decision I ever made. And of course, I've never taken a PR class in my life, so I just thought it was common sense. And then people would say, well, you can't do that. And I'm like, oh, well, I am, and it works, so I don't understand. And so I just stopped hiring people with PR backgrounds and then just hired kids right out of school and trained them myself. And I just built this big PR firm, which I sold. And then I played golf for a week and started another company.
And you've done that 4 times now, is that right?
Yes.
4 times. So you only get 1 week of golf in between each company, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm bored. I get bored easily. I don't like to sustain things. I like to build things. Mm-hmm. And so I would rather build, and then stop doing that and go do something else.
The reason I thought was so interesting, the reason I wanted to put you on the podcast was you are one of the few people, and we've interviewed, I think, one other in several months we've been doing this, who has done the full cycle. You had an idea, you built a company, you grew the company, and then you sold the company.
Yes. And then what happened is the first 2 companies I did, one was a training firm, and I had a partner, and I sold to my partner. And then I had a political consulting firm that we ended up it cut into my regular business so much because it's so cyclical. Okay. That I couldn't do my regular business. I mean, it was fun because I wanted to learn politics. And so didn't stop doing that. And then when I was in Phoenix, I had a marketing firm, and I sold that, moved here, and then when I got out here, I said, I'm going to build a company that I'm going to sell and really make a
bunch of money.
Oh yeah, a much better word. Yes,
I love it.
A ton of money, and I built my company much differently because first off, the largest client in my company was MMI.
So your biggest client was yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we had an account executive assigned to us because I wanted us. The only way you can get more money out of your business is if you have goodwill, and so we had a ton of goodwill because we were always in the news, and we were way bigger than most people realized because I never had any business development people. I never had a salesperson. I used my clients to become evangelists for me. And so my clients would find my other clients. I didn't do pitches. I didn't know how to do a pitch. Somebody would call me on the phone, and then they would say they had a problem, and I'd go over and, see them and talk to them, and I'd figure out what their pain is. And then I would send them an email that said, here's what we'll do for you, and here's how much it'll cost a month.
That's a pitch, right?
Well, not really, because most people, you have to go out and do a presentation, and you have to I just sent an email, and then they would hire me. I didn't know any better. In fact, I asked somebody one time who was, in the marketing world, like, could you teach me how to do a pitch? And she's like, hell no. She said, your sales cycle is so short. She says, my sales cycle is a year's. Yours is like one meeting. And so I just, and I didn't have contracts. I did towards the end because I knew I was getting ready to sell the firm, but I never had a contract. If you didn't want me, I didn't want you. And my clients didn't leave. And it's a different business because you're a trusted business advisor. So you're like the CPA and the attorney. You're not a commodity to them. So when times got tough, they would maybe fire their advertising agency, but they didn't fire us.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because a lot of times PR and marketing are pretty tied together. And especially since you were mentioning that other marketing firms were looking, for advice from you as the PR firm to how you were marketing yourself.
Yeah, and then what happened is a lot of them a lot of companies who said they did PR would actually hire us to do the PR for their client. And I'm like, I'll be whoever you want me to be. I don't care.
So you were a ghostwriter for the PR companies, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, same thing. Like I've never had a title on my business card. I could care less about any of that stuff. And I just loved PR. I thought it was great. I loved telling stories. I had great relationships with reporters. And in my world, if a client acted up, I would fire the client because I can go to the client tree and pick another client. But I can't go and get that reporter that I need who does real estate. And I have a commercial real estate company, a residential real estate company. And that was the other thing. I only took one client per industry. I did not. A lot of people would say, oh, I specialize in banks. Well, I said, well, how can you decide if you've got a story, what bank gets it? I wanted my interests to be aligned with my clients. And so, again, I just was very different than everybody else.
So I want to piece some of that apart. I want to back up a bit. Something I say when I'm talking to startups, we do a lot of startup work. What I say is there's two types of companies, two phases. You have before you're awesome and once you're awesome, right? Before you're awesome, no one knows who you are. You are building a very different company than when you are awesome and you have your own gravity, people are coming to you, which is what you've mainly been describing. But bridging that gap, the before and after, is really hard. And most people, that's where they fail.
And so I moved here and I'm like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. Because in PR, it's all about who's your daddy? Who do you know? And here I am, I don't know one person. I was such a loser. And so I took the first 6 months and I went to everything I could go to. I went to every meeting, luncheon, and I never talked to anybody. I wanted to figure out Raleigh. And that was back in the days when Raleigh was kind of a cow town, everybody knew everybody and they knew if you were naughty and nice. And so I wanted to see how to break into Raleigh. And then I finally figured out, okay, here are the steps. And then I realized everything at that time was going through the chamber. And you didn't want to be like, not business after hours, because that's, ankle biters. You wanted to be on the board, or better yet, the executive committee. And I knew that in order to get there, I was going to have to do some things. And so I did some, first off, every nonprofit wants PR. So I did a ton of free PR. But I was convinced there were 6 people in Raleigh who actually did what they said they were going to do. And you'd be so surprised how fast you can move up if you just do what you say you're going to do. So I worked for, I did some work for nonprofits and I got on their boards, and then I met people at the chamber, and then I got on their board, and then I got invited to chair their, communications committee, and I did that for a couple of years. And then I was on the executive committee for several years. And I just, it's all about who you know here. And my philosophy is that I don't network like anyone else. I will never ask you to do something for me. I will ask you to do something for someone else. And if you ask me to do something and it doesn't kill me, and if it's not illegal, causes cancer or fattening, then I would do it. So I would do favors for everybody in town. And especially since in my business, I'd have a reporter call and say, hey, I'm doing a story on such and such, and I didn't have a client in that field, but I knew somebody in that field, and I'd call them and say, hey, you want to do this story? So of course I was like very popular, and I just networked that way. I just went and did favors for people, and I am like a German Shepherd puppy. I never met anybody I didn't like. I'm really interested in people, and it was just I was very different.
So if you were to broaden that, I'm trying to think if I'm someone who wants to go into PR, or anything, any type of service business, I think is where it's unique. And we fall in that same category is traditional sales don't work.
Right.
Networking is the only thing we found that works. How do you, so you're in the same boat, but you're coming in and you're saying, if I was starting a business similar to yours or mine or whatever, service business, what do I take away from this? One, be available to do favors for people. Be friendly. That's a given. It's all about who you know, which is the way I've looked at that, and I've explained this to other people. And tell me if you think this is right. Everybody knows their own peer group, right? And we're all generally who you hang out with is in your rung of success. And if you want to grow your business, you've got to go up a rung, or two, or three, or whatever. But your peers, by and large, can't help you when you're starting out, right? Because they're on your rung. They know other grunts like you're a grunt, right? So you want to go up a rung and find the managers or ultimately the owners. Because once you get to a certain rung, owners know owners. Rich people know rich people. Those are the pockets you want to get in because that's where the money is, right?
Well, I never hung out with my peers because why do I want to network with my competition? They can't do anything for me. So I never belonged to PRSA or any of that kind of stuff. And I hung out where my clients were. Mm-hmm. And I always dealt with the owner or the highest person because they'd hire you, and then of course they'd have some marketing manager that you'd have to work with, and of course they're convinced you're going to come in and take their crappy $50,000 a year job and close your company, and it's you're hey, I'm here to make you successful, but if they acted up, then I could go back to the owner, and then I didn't have a problem because I dealt with the owner, and so they didn't usually act up on me. And after they got to know us, then they would know, hey, we're here to make you successful.
So how do you get to the owner? Did you meet the owner first and then he introduces you to the middle manager kind of person?
Yes, the owner, okay. I would be out for 10 years, I was out 6 nights a week attending an event, sometimes 3 events. And people said, oh, your life is so glamorous because you're out drinking and eating. And I'm like, and this is what happens to you, and so I was out networking. I would go to things, and in the beginning it was to meet people, but then after a while it was just to touch base with people, sure. What I used to call the usual suspects, and you wanted to be in with those people. And so I would just, and a lot of times I would, there'd be a dinner, and I'd sign up for the dinner and pay for it, but I'd go to the networking thing that was an hour beforehand and then leave. Because I don't need to be at a table with 6 people listening to, I just forget it.
No, but isn't that a good place to get to know? I mean, maybe once you're already got your gravity, but you stay for the dinner initially, I'm assuming.
Yeah, in the beginning I did, but and then I had this plan of, okay, I said I need to get the nonprofits, and then I need to get into the chamber, and then I need to get into the leadership of the chamber, and then I said, okay, I need to know all the political figures and get to know them really well. And then, Raleigh is full of these super secret groups, that by invitation only. And
I did not know that. That's because I'm not in those groups.
Okay, so it's there's all these groups that's just by invitation only, and there's the one that was the most prestigious it's called the 50 group, and you have to be invited in. And that was my 10-year goal, was to be in 50 group. And I actually got in 6 years, but mostly because it's a bunch of old white guys, and they didn't have any women. And I think that's the only reason I actually got in, is I needed, a woman.
So, not to divulge the secret society group, when you're in a group like that, we could speak generically.
Yeah.
this is a business thing or a friend thing? You're friends with these people and then business comes?
No, this is a business group.
Okay.
And it is by invitation only, but every single person in that group is a client for me.
Big player.
That's where I want to be. You have to be the CEO or the head of the company, and it has to be by invitation only. And they have to have certain people. You have to have more than one nomination, and But for me, it was great because it
opens a big door, right?
Yeah. And there's way more women's groups like that than there were men's group. Because men can't say, we're going to have the white men's club. Women could say, well,
That's true.
Women could do, a women's group. So.
Is there a group like that, you think, all over? Every city,
Oh, yeah.
decent sized city, has some form of group like that?
Yeah.
And you get in, that's golden, right? But I mean, isn't that only for certain industries? Like any industry, can on Amazon, tiny Amazon, that doesn't make sense, right? Because they sell products.
Right.
So these are service people.
But I'm sure probably within the cities where a lot of the headquarters or the big, Amazon warehouses are located, whoever's running that warehouse is probably in one of these local businesses.
Yes. And for instance, there's a CEO group here in Raleigh, and I'm not in it, obviously, but you have to be the head person. You have to have no less than 500 employees. You must have $50 million in revenues, and they meet. Well, that's, I've been invited as a guest several times, but, I didn't have $50 million in revenue.
Sure.
And so, but that's a group. Every city has those groups.
Well, I'm in C12, which is a version of that, but it's not nearly as large.
Yeah.
But it's a business group where CEOs only or owners have to be there. You have to be $1 million, which they let me in before I was $1 million because I knew a guy. But and then you're around. That's your round table, and you advise each other. There's another one called Visage. Would you advise people to get into those groups? I mean, I love C12 simply because when I joined them, I was good at what I did. I'm a good developer. I was a good designer, but I was a horrible business person. I had no idea what I was doing from a business perspective. And they have invested a lot and taught me a lot of that. And that's been huge for me. But if you're in that boat, they're Visage and whatnot, whether you like them or not, I don't know them from Adam, but there's a lot of those kinds of groups. Do you recommend all of those and then you build up to very few companies get to 500 million or 50 million or whatever. But is this something that you would recommend for people?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, I can remember when I first started my company back in Phoenix, and I wanted to hire an employee, and I was really afraid because I didn't understand all the bookkeeping stuff and the governmental stuff, and and I was really like, I didn't hire anybody for a while because I didn't know how to do it, and then I had belonged to this group, and I finally came in, and you don't want to admit, hey, I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing. You don't want to admit, because it's like, the secret to business is people are like, oh, I'm like, none of us know what we're doing. Trust me. We just act like we do. None of us know what we're doing. And I went in and they said, oh, this is really easy, and taught me what I needed to do. I'm like, oh, just get a payroll company. And that's really kind of how I learned, like, I don't like tedious things, and I hate accounting. And so I would hire the expertise that I needed so I could do the things I wanted to do. So, yeah.
But you have to be a certain size to be able to do that, right? You're not brand new when you're hiring an accounting firm to do all your... Well, accounting firms themselves are not that expensive.
I'm chicken and egg thing, but to me it's like, I would rather hire somebody and have them do it so I can be out doing what I need to be doing. You can't afford not to do it.
There's a Dave Ramsey quote, I'm a big fan of his, generally speaking, where he says, you as a CEO, your job is to do something that only you can do. Everything else delegate. And I've always kind of kept that. And I was joking with someone the other day that being the CEO, founder, whatever you want to call it, is the only job where your job is to give away your job. So that you can do something totally different that you don't know how to do yet, probably. And so, like, I was a developer. We hire developers. I push that off. I do the sales and stuff now. I have a marketing person, right? That's been weird. So if you it's the only job. It's like, what do you do? Well, I give my job away because everybody else, I have to do something to deliver. But you have to, so that you can do what only you can do. Only I can go out there and sell to other CEOs because they're not going to talk to. Like you said, everyone wants to talk to the owner. And that's it. I was going to ask you that earlier about the title thing. So I don't like titles, but I find them necessary when I'm talking to other people. Internally, we don't really have titles. We're very flat. But externally, how do you get around, if you're not the owner, why is the CEO going to talk to you? How do you get around that?
It's never come up. I mean, it's just,
Do they just assume you're the owner?
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it's like, my people were really always into these like big titles. And I would have their business cards printed with no titles on them. And they hated that. I'm like, you can be imperial potentate for all I care. You can be the supreme commander. I don't care about titles. Because nobody's ever asked me that. And it's like, you're going to hire somebody because they're a president or they're a CEO? Hell no. You're going to hire them because they can do the job and you have confidence that they can do the job. I just never felt it was necessary to persuade somebody. I wasn't in the business of selling somebody. I was in the business of figuring out what the problem was and then solving the problem. And when I had MMI, I was very, very well known in the community. I, just was very well known. I was on a ton of boards and...
But you had to earn that.
Oh.
Right? That's the thing I want to make sure, because our audience is people who haven't earned it yet, right? Those people who earned it probably don't need to listen to my podcast, right? So I'm always trying to figure out what is it, the steps that you did, and you've explained that, I'm not asking again, but how did you get there? Because towards the end, you know everybody. You can make a call, hey, you need to call MMI, you need PR, whatever.
Yeah.
That's your gravity. You're there, you made it. It's the earning that gravity is the hard part.
But here's what I see startups and beginning entrepreneurs do, is that they have this idea and they're really good at it. So then they're out there and they're marketing. And then they get business. And so then they stop marketing because they're doing the work. And then, we don't have any more work. So we're marketing.
Oh
And
my gosh.
they go up like this and up like this. And I don't believe in that. I mean, I do not believe in that. You've got to always, you have to get yourself out there.
Behind,
yes. You get your behind out there, and you've got to meet people.
These are the lessons I've been trying to give David.
He thinks he's a lot smarter than he is. Anyway, so I don't even need to be here. Right. So, but it was the same thing where we were doing marketing, we had clients, I was busy taking care of those clients, and I wasn't schmoozing them. Now we had COVID, which is its own weird thing, but I stopped going out and schmoozing. I stopped doing that. And nothing dried up, but the phone doesn't ring as much, right? And we were fine. We had our big clients. We were happy. But last September, as a leadership group, we were saying, dude, you got to get up there. And so I'm now having to, like I was saying, delegate, because we realized, this is what Gary makes funny about, it took like a sledgehammer to hit over my head to finally realize and give up on the fact that I cannot give away sales, right? Because it is painful to a point. I enjoy networking. It's in my personality. But, you're not home with your family. You're out. It's usually evenings. You've got to do this, that, and the other. It's not great. So I would neglect it, like you were saying. And it's weird because the landscape changes under your feet.
Yep.
That's one thing. And again, COVID absolutely wrecked everything. But the events that I used to attend don't exist anymore. Those all faded. And where are the events? I have to go find them again. And they're still there. They're usually smaller because, again, COVID. But it's been a really interesting thing and I would say from my own history and what you're telling me, you never should stop.
Never.
Because as the CEO, founder, owner, whatever, you're the cheerleader, right? That's your job. You're telling everybody how awesome your company is, and you can't ever stop doing that.
I never had any one client be more than 10% of my revenues, because first off, I usually fired clients and everybody in town knew it. So if you acted up, there's another bank right over there that wants me. And so I would fire them, and then they wouldn't act up because, it's like, no, you don't get to say you don't want to do that interview because I need that reporter. But I never wanted anybody to do more than 10% because when 2008 came, I watched so many of my competitors go out of business because they specialized in automotive, or they specialized in retail, and I'm like, if I lost a client, I can just go to the client tree and get myself another one. I didn't have to worry about that.
That's a hard thing, though, because, I mean, even in our case, we certainly aren't keeping 10%. There's no way. We have much bigger clients than that. And, it's a scary thing, right? I don't want my eggs in the basket.
I said our industry now is a bit different. Coming from the media industry that I used to work in, advertising was the main source of revenue. And during 2008, just as Patty mentioned, retail sales, automotive, real estate, and everything related around those main three, the advertising dollars dried up quick.
Yeah. And my clients were more the AT&Ts, the Lenovo's, that,
Monsters, yeah.
Yeah. And but I also had other ones that were smaller. And the other thing I did was I made sure that I never grew more than 20% per year, because I could control that growth and I could manage 20% every year. And so every year I was in business, I grew. Well, in the beginning I was like, double.
Sure.
But every year I was 20%. And so when 2008 came, I went, before that I was doing the exact opposite of everybody else. I was hoarding cash. And of course my banker, my CPA, everybody kept saying, no one needs this much cash. I said, this can't go on forever. This market is too hot. Sure enough, 2008 came, and I called my people in and said, I have never laid anybody off in my life, and I'm not going to now. So don't worry about the competition. Worry about our clients. Don't do your job and I'll fire your ass. But just worry about your clients. And so we continued to grow. And then I said, everything's on sale.
Yeah.
So that's when I bought 2 buildings. I hired all these people that everybody else laid off, and we grew. Until that's when I said, okay, it's time now. I can start getting ready to sell.
It sounds like that you managed to time that out perfectly. And so props for that. That seems like an amazing intuition that you had on that front.
A recession for someone is a huge opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can just pile up cash or whatever, you can cash in on that and make really good moves. But man, that's hard to do in practice, right? It's hard to build up that cash when you're just making it by, right? To build up that war chest to say, okay, I've got, now once you're super successful, sure. But that's always been, I see this, my business group is all freaking out about this economy. It's going to explode. I'm like, okay, we're preparing, but you kind of look and it's like, well, it's not so bad out there yet. But it's like, if you can do it, buy low, sell high, right? It's the same concept. This economy right now is going to be weird. I don't know if it's going to go full recession. I don't know anything in that regard, because it's just not acting normal. Everything I've read is just not acting normal.
Well, Raleigh is always last in, first out, number one, because we have such a diversity of businesses here. Mm-hmm. So we're not like Charlotte, where 75% of the pie is banking. So it's easier here. Plus, I don't think it's going to get really bad, because every time you turn around, there's another company coming, mm-hmm. and they need workers. They're going to need services. And so, I did admit that in 2008, I did say, we're going into some we're going to take some recession-proof companies as clients. I'm like, I had never really cared about insurance. I'm like, I'm all over insurance now.
Healthcare.
Yeah. And so, but these people should have been hoarding cash before. Right now is when they should be spending cash.
Yeah. And
it's just a lot of people didn't do that. And I always do the opposite of what the market's doing, because it's, you have an advantage there.
Mm-hmm. I want to end with a question I like to ask all my guests. You have been successful many times over. If you were telling a new startup, in your industry or not, whether that's up to you, what are the 3 things you would tell them to get them going that could be applied to a new person in your shoes X years ago?
Okay, the first thing is that profit and loss doesn't matter. Cash flow matters. You can get an order, and that's great, but if you don't have the cash flow and you have to do the work for 6 months and then you get paid, and then of course it's a gigantic company and they're going to take 90 days to pay you, then it doesn't really matter. So that's a really important thing. The other is, do what you say you're going to do. I tell you what, you can't go wrong there. and then develop deep relationships with your clients, because like when 2008 came, they fired all the advertising agencies, but they didn't fire us because we had a good relationship, and they realized that they're paying the advertising agency $10,000 a month and they're paying us $7,500, and they would say, I get way more out of that $7,500 than I did the $10,000. And so we didn't get cut off. And I would tell my people, like, look, there's still people out there doing PR, just we gotta roll our boat over to that shore and find them. So, and then just work really hard, just work really hard. It's, none of us knows what we're doing. We really don't. We just fake it. And
that's as good as I can hope for.
Okay.
I love it. And I want to quote one of our devs who said this on multiple occasions. Juan, props to you. No matter how big or perfect the software you see online or use is, beneath the veil, it's all held together by duct tape. So it's similar to not everyone knows what they're doing. Except
our projects. Our projects are amazing. Just rebar and concrete on big pixel projects.
Yeah.
It's just the technical metaphor for exactly what she just explained. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. This is cool. I like this whole in-person thing.
It was much better than I thought. I was sort of dreading this.
Oh, man.
I'm really glad I did it now. It was
awesome.
fun.
Well, Gary, if anybody wants to get in touch with us, what do they do?
Well, if you have any comments or questions about the show itself, you can leave that in the comment section on YouTube, or you could just send us an email, and that's hello@thebigpixel.net. You can follow us on all of our social media channels and interact with us there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. This has been great.
Thank you. It was really fun.
Good.
Patty, it's awesome meeting you, and I love your energy and your stories. You've got me amped up to try to push some more PR in David's direction.
Something to ignore him about. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.